What if I told you the Philadelphia Eagles offense isn't just underperforming, it is totally out of sync? You might respond by saying the Philadelphia Eagles' offensive struggles are due to play calling. And to an extent, you would absolutely be correct. However, that's still only half of the story. The truth is, we could blame Hurts. We could blame Sirianni. We could blame Kevin Patullo. Unfortunately, the real reason this offense is struggling is way deeper than that. And if I'm being honest about the situation, there's still one name in this entire blame game that keeps getting left out of the discussion. And I'm about to raise that by the end of this video. You see, there once was a time that the Philadelphia Eagles offense dictated the pace of game to its opponents. But now, as we try to close out games, our offense is not only very predictable, but it's super conservative. You could argue, Steve, we've always been a little bit predictable if we're going to be honest about the situation, but we just always out-executed our opponents. With that said, we have clearly lost our ability to sustain offense, run clock, and land that killer blow. Let me show you the moment I think everything kind of changed on the 2025 season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's run to the tape. During the Tampa Bay game, late inside the third going into the fourth quarter, there was a very clear concerted effort to get A.J. Brown the football. Something that any of us could have told the coaching staff. I mean, obviously the coaching staff looks at this stuff too, and they thought to themselves, yeah, we really need to come up with a way of sustaining offense. And depending on the opponent, depending on game conditions, it needs to be through the air. In this particular situation, if I remember the situation correctly, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were missing some players from their secondary, and we tried to attack them. Now, the concept that they're going to run here that I'm going to show you on the screen is, this is just a really, really simple dagger concept, okay? Your inside receiver is going to run vertical and clear the route out. Your outside receiver is going to come back in on kind of like a drag kind of route type, deep in route type situation here, okay? Now, I don't think this is the fault of anybody, okay? I think, honestly, just the defensive back did a really good job here, to be quite honest. But you can see, as AJ gets to the top of his route stem, he's running dagger, guys, so this isn't an option route. It's not like he can stem it outside. He's got to follow the play call. He starts to stem inward, and just the body position of the cornerback allowed him so that way when AJ stemmed, he stemmed right into the position of the defensive back, and that play is just not there for AJ to make. I'm sorry. And that play is just not there for Jalen to make, and Jalen has to come off of that look. It results in him being sacked, if I remember correctly. In the next sequence of video clips, what I'm going to show you is 3 passing attempts, 3 attempts to get AJ the ball. This is them very clearly trying to build a rhythm and timing to the offense, and then also very clearly trying to sustain a drive. They need a first down. They need to get something accomplished here. And what I want to show you is very clearly what they're doing, what I think is the underlying problem with the offense here. They start out, and you can see here, AJ's in ISO. Okay, ISO just means he's in isolation. He's the lone receiver to that side. When you're in isolation, and then make it matters worse, if you're lined up on the line of scrimmage in isolation, you can't move. So essentially, it makes it easier to bracket you with coverage, right? I can come up and play you with a corner, and I can keep safety, help over top of you without much risk to the rest of my defense. They're going to try to hit these quick hitters, right? They're going to try to hit these hitches, these curls, these kind of comeback routes. They want these quick timing throws to AJ. And to be honest with you, they're not there. On the very first throw, if I'm going to be honest about the situation, I think Jalen was trying to correctly lead AJ outside because of the leverage of the cornerback. But AJ doesn't, I don't think, see it quick enough to realize what's going on. He just doesn't get far enough outside. I think Jalen placed the ball correctly for him, just given the leverage of the cornerback there. All right, the next video. What you got here is this is the very next play. You got AJ in isolation this time towards the field side. But then we're going to do like an over motion with, I believe that's Dotson coming over the formation. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to try to hit, once again, one of these little quick hitters, these hitches, curls, comeback type route things. Defense is there. It's just not there in terms of the timing. And remember, on these type of plays, guys, it's very much about your footwork as a quarterback, and the ball has to come out at a certain point, right? These are structured to where you hit a certain step, you're looking to see if that's open. This is very much like a West Coasty-ish type play. Even though we're not really a true West Coast offense, every offense now has inspirations from every system around the league. All right, this next video, we're going to come out, we're going to change it up formationally. All right, same drive. This is the third play of that drive. Now we're in 12 personnel. We're going to go with like kind of a 2-by-2 split. And once again, they're going to try to work the ball into AJ, one of these quick hitters again. They're very much trying to jumpstart the offense. I still think even if AJ caught that, you're probably up against it, guys. I don't think that's going to be anywhere near close enough to go for it. I mean, maybe AJ breaks a tackle there. Maybe that's what they're looking for, is try to get that, that yak, yards after catch, that AJ's been good at traditionally throughout his career. I can understand that. Like, hey, AJ's always one tackle, one broken tackle away from making a huge play. So I can understand maybe what they're trying to do philosophically here, but once again, this does not work. So now you got 3 consecutive plays to where you try to get into the AJ and nothing's happened. And I want to take this to a larger point, and then I want to show you a moment before this, and I want to show you the moments after this drive. You can kind of put together what's happening here. Okay, if you look through weeks 1 through weeks 10, it doesn't include what just happened last night, okay, with the Detroit game. If you look at first down percentages league-wide on the second half of football games, so the third quarter, the fourth quarter, and overtime. I'm not doing it by total number because that would obviously lead to opportunities and how many possessions you have and things like that. I'm doing it by percentage. The Eagles have the second lowest percentage of first downs in the second half of football games, and that's a problem. You cannot sustain offense like that. Very clearly, right? What's the definition of sustaining offense? Staying on the field. How does one stay on the field if they cannot convert? You don't, right? In the fourth quarter of this game, this Tampa Bay game, Jalen Hurts ends up going 0 for 4 in that game. No first downs generated through the passing game, okay? The following week, when we get to the Denver game, AJ is 5-9 for roughly right around 50 yards. But once again, when you look at conversions and sustaining the drives, they only pick up 1 first down. 2 games, 1 first down, fourth quarter of games. Eventually, Denver leads a comeback on us in the fourth quarter and wins that football game. That's the problem with the offense, guys. I'm not saying we don't have a play calling issue. There are times where I think Kevin Patullo has to be a little better at sequencing plays. Sequencing plays just means that where things make sense in order. Like you're setting the defense up for something. I do think there's times to where, because we're trying to throw so much stuff to get things kick-started, we're forgetting how to sequence plays a little bit. I don't think the guy's fireable right now, at least in season. I don't think it's that bad yet. But I'm definitely getting concerned because the sequencing is not there, and we're 10 games in. He's got to kind of pick it up at some point. To me, the larger problem here is that we have a lot of inconsistency along our O-line, and I think that's just throwing a monkey wrench into everything. Now, I'm not saying we don't have moments where you see great pass protection. The run game has been super inconsistent, guys. We are just not getting the push that we need on a consistent basis in the run game. And if this Eagles offense cannot run the football, it is going to have a heck of a time in the second half of football games sustaining offense, to be quite honest. So that really leaves you with only one choice, in my opinion. I think you have to simply put Jalen Hurts back under shotgun. Everyone keeps asking, why aren't we running RPOs anymore? How are you going to run an RPO, guys, under center? Because we're under center a lot more. It's kind of a foolish question to ask. What kind of RPO do you think you're running under center, guys? You need to be in the shotgun to do that. So, I think that's step one, is that they got to find a harmony between being under center when it's called for. When you're trying to get physical and you got to just push guys out of the way, you got to get under center and they got to get the job done. But also you can relieve some of the issues we're having in the run game by going to shotgun, doing a little bit more RPO or read, zone read, and allowing Jalen Hurts to be a part of the actual running game again. There's been some theory circulating that they are going to absolutely get back to that, and they're just waiting for the second half of the season. This was just a way of managing Jalen Hurts' health, so that way we're not beating him up over the course of the season, basically. The other thing I think that has to happen here, guys, to be quite honest, and we saw a little bit of it in Detroit. So we saw a little, not in Detroit, we saw a little bit versus Detroit. They got to move AJ a little bit more. I'm not saying you never put AJ in ISO. He's your best guy in ISO. However, it makes it easy for the defense to take him away if he's always in ISO. I saw versus Detroit last night that AJ was lined up a little bit towards the field side here and there. They had him in the slot a few times. They were definitely playing a little bit more of Where's Waldo with AJ, making it tougher for defenses to actually do anything with it. Now, I will throw this caveat in here, and I'll get into a couple more videos. I do think that there is some reason to say pump the brakes a little bit, guys. We just played 2 consecutive cold weather games. I'm sorry. If you've never played football and you've never been super cold weather, it changes the football. It lets out air from the football, which you would think, gives you a little bit more smushiness to the football, which it does to an extent. But then as it gets colder and it gets wet, it gets slippery and it becomes like an ice ball. Look at last night's game and look at Devontae Smith dropping passes. Devontae Smith dropped some passes. Like, people can say what they want to say about AJ, but we were kind of forced into getting AJ into the offense just because AJ was the guy who was, more consistent with catching the ball last night. And I'll give Dotson a shout out because I thought Dotson had a couple of really important catches himself, to be honest. Goddard was dropping the ball last night. I mean, look at, the guy came in with the highest completion rate in the entire NFL last night. Comes into that game, and he's below 40%. Jared Goff was like 38% completion rate. That should tell you a little bit about the conditions of these games. Like, I think some people are going overboard about the offense. Like, let's wait and see how they play in a more ideal dome setting, and then let's start maybe throwing some harsher critiques if it still looks this bad. With that said, they have tried this A.J. Brown thing before. And I want to go back to that Tampa Bay game because this is the origin of when I think it all started, guys. They had a matchup they liked. They thought they could take advantage of these defensive backs. And for whatever reason, it didn't click in that game. It just didn't happen the way we were hoping it would happen. So, what I'm going to take you to is they're coming out in what's basically a flex bone formation. All right, when you're in a flex bone formation, you got an X receiver, you got a Y receiver, and you got two winged players with the quarterback under center. Your running back basically set almost close to like what would be an ace formation, but this is a flex bone. Okay? So, in my opinion, really good formation, really good thing to confuse the eyes of the defense. But I think this lends to some of A.J. Brown's critiques about our offense, which is, yes, this is a target, but this ball has no shot at being won. Like, this does not result in the play we want. They try to go play action with this stuff. They try to get A.J. deep. It's just not there. The play's just not there to be made, to be quite honest. And, like, you can see that there's some of these type of attempts that are going to A.J. They're just not, I'm not faulting anyone for it because, I'd rather that ball go out of bounds and not be in play to where the ball could get picked off than to have a turnover in that situation. But we can see that, things that maybe look good on paper. Oh, yes, get some flex bone in there. Let's confuse the defense's eyes. Let's try to attack those corners with one of our more physically gifted guys. It didn't work in practice, did it, right? The next video I want to show you is Tampa Bay started moving their essentially pre and post snap formations on the Eagles in terms of their coverage shell. So you get a formation pre-snap that looks like a single high. Post-snap, they're kind of falling into a Tampa 2. Tampa playing a Tampa 2 has been a long time since we heard those words, huh? But they do. They're playing Tampa 2 here. And you can see that little bit of movement and shifting just kind of it throws off the flow of the offense a little bit. And it wasn't there. It's from an execution standpoint, we didn't get what we wanted here. This is another attempt to AJ. It's not, this is fruitless. It's fruitless in terms of the ability to get AJ involved in the game. So I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, guys. They got to move this guy around. It's got to be harder to play a little bit and figure out where AJ is on the field. You can't make it easy to bracket him. I just think we're doing him a disservice by doing that. All right, y'all. In my opinion, this is how I'm going to end this. I'm going to tell you who I think is at fault. All right? I'm not calling for anyone's job. You guys know me. I'm not a guy that calls to get people fired unless I think that it's really untenable. I will say that Parks Frazier, and if there's anyone listening that's in the Eagles front office or is, a representative of the coaching staff or Parks Frazier, any of the assistants that want to defend him, I'll hear you out. But I'm going to tell you right now that the spacing ain't right. You're the passing game coordinator. Why is the spacing so off? I'm not saying that we were great in the passing game last year, but things made more sense schematically. I think you're kind of floating by. I don't think people understand what your role is. I think it's weird that, Kevin Patullo has been here for years, and we know that we've seen this passing game through different coordinators do perfectly fine with him as the passing game coordinator. We elevated him to the OC. You're, elevated now into that role, and it don't look good, man. And if I'm going to be honest, if you go back to when they were calling plays in Indianapolis when Parks Frazier wasn't 22, that wasn't a very good offense in terms of the passing game. Then he goes with Frank Reich to Carolina. That was a really bad offense in terms of the passing game. Was a rookie there? There's reason to, look, they were going through 1,000,001 quarterbacks the year that he was calling plays for Indianapolis, and then they had a rookie quarterback the year that he was calling plays for Carolina. Or he was coordinating, I should say. He was coordinating, not calling plays for Carolina. He was the passing game coordinator. On one hand, really, really respected coaches like Frank Reich and like Nick Sirianni, they seem to like you. Seem to like this young man. On the other hand, the production hasn't come out yet. Now, I personally love stories where you find a guy that wasn't working out in other places, but the reputation behind this guy, and he works out and is tremendous for the Eagles, and I hope that becomes Park Frazier's story. But I got to tell you, we got to go back to the drawing board a little bit here, guys, with this passing game. This passing game is unacceptable right now. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Listen, YouTube's telling me that if you want to learn more about the Philadelphia Eagles, they're telling me that you need to watch this video right here to learn a little bit more about our scheme. All right, y'all. Peace. I'm out of here.